You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. This is Force 13 Live. We are tracking what we would consider to be major Typhoon Danas. Wind speed estimate 120 miles per hour. Pressure estimate 949 millibars. This storm has rapidly intensified in the last 24 hours. And as you can see, is bearing down on Taiwan as a very powerful typhoon indeed. Much more so than many may have expected. It is a very compact system. Clear to see the eye on that storm right now behind me, and closing down on those kilometers up until landfall. We estimate at this hour that it is approximately 64-ish kilometers from making landfall, very close to the Tainan area. My name is Nathan Foy here in the studio, and we are joined by a few people as well, and you saw our simulated camera there as well, which we've got a bit of sound from. We also have obviously some eyes on the ground too. I am joined by a few people, Jack, Blaine and Christian. Hello to you guys, good evening as it is over there.
Well, it's afternoon for me.
Yeah.
Indeed. And it's been a bit of a surprise to see the storm ramp up just as quickly as it has, because when we look at the raw satellite imagery estimates, they're even higher than the intensity estimate we're going right now. JTWC are still stuck at 90 miles per hour. The Japan Meteorological Agency, I'm not sure what they're going at this point. Earlier they were only at, hold on a second, they are still only calling it a severe tropical storm with winds of about 80 miles per hour. I gotta tell everyone here, it is much stronger than that. Much stronger than that. And I think it's clear for anyone to see, really. Blaine, what's your take on it?
Well, just looking at satellite imagery right now, it definitely went through an IWIL replacement cycle a couple hours ago. And it is, like you said, definitely a compact storm. It is currently over really warm waters, actually, 29, 30 degrees. So definitely has enough fuel for quite a bad landfall. I would probably say it is going to sustain its intensity a bit, but it won't. Once it obviously leaves Tai and goes inland, it will, weaken significantly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at our multi-panel display right now, where we've got everything going on right in front of us. You can see on the top left, we'll get a proper view of that shortly. That is the JTWC cone. Well, it's a bit too small there to actually pinpoint everything. You just saw the radar there on the bottom left. Looks like we've just lost that feed by the looks of things on that latest frame. These are all visible on the Force 13 website, and on the bottom right there is some satellite imagery, the ZER enhancement imagery of the storm as it's been progressing northeasterly. And as you can see, in terms of a track projection, much more further north than what was being said a couple of days ago. Back when we did our tropical weather bulletin on July 4th, I think it was, we were calling for the track to move through the Batanes Islands of the Philippines. Clearly it's ended up much further north than there, even further north than Kaohsiung City, and very close to Tainan. It will capitulate very quickly when it makes landfall. It is pretty tiny. The core of the storm is pretty tiny. So it's going to be very susceptible to change. And I don't know if Jack or Christian want to pick up on that element of it. But let's talk to Jack. What were you expecting when you were waking up this morning, Jack, looking at this storm? Is he still there?
No,
Oh, he's run
his
off.
camera. Oh no,
he's returned now.
He's
Okay.
come back.
Jack, tell us your
sorry about
thoughts.
that.
No problem. Tell us
yeah.
your thoughts on Danas.
I was having a problem with internet issues, but yeah. When I woke up this morning, I wasn't expecting it to be higher than Category 1, so I was quite impressed with how much it's intensified overnight, or over the morning. And I also have up on my screen some traffic cameras that I can take a look at. Some only little pop-ups, but they work as they
You've got
do.
nothing up on your screen.
You'll have to press the button for us there,
I
Jack.
need
Whilst we wait for that, though, let's just cut to one of those cameras we're looking at. This is Kaohsiung City right now, looking down onto the beach area there, and you can see it's getting a little bit wild. Obviously quite hard to get a real feel of what it's like down there when we're looking at these webcams, but that is one such view that we're looking at. And down on the ground in Tainan, here's another one of these viewpoints that we're looking at here. You can see the rain hammering down there. This could be a massive rainmaker, especially near the center of the storm.
Yeah.
I know that projections earlier were calling for maybe somewhere near 500 millimeters. I actually haven't seen recently what the projection is now, but I'm sure we'll shed some light on that in a while. But now Jack, I believe, is ready for us, and that imagery, that ambient noise in the background just abruptly ended for a second there. But let's check in now with Jack. You're showing us those traffic cameras, a big network of traffic cameras over there.
Yeah. There is a lot. I'm trying to get some of them to work. Some of them aren't working that well. Here's a good one. It doesn't really show much though, but you can see the rain. Right. Let's find a good one.
Trying to get the ones near the shore there.
Try and get the one good. This is a good one here. Look at that rain, and you can see that wind as well. It's annoying it closes.
Yeah, to an extent. I mean, the roads are quite quiet. It's still relatively early in the evening, so most people have, I assume, taken shelter or returned to a safe place, not out and about.
But there are a few outliers hanging around. I think this is Tainan.
That is
I'll
the
move
Tainan area, I
over to-
believe.
I can move over to Kaohsiung. Does this camera work?
Yep,
Yeah,
a
but
few
it's
viewpoints there.
green. But you can see. Oh, is this one gonna work?
So
Sorry,
it gives you a little
this
idea
camera.
on what
But yeah,
the conditions are like in the area in various
There's-
locations.
there's one. You can see the wind on the road there clearly, and some cars going by, of course.
Yep, I hope people are taking this seriously. It has ramped up very quickly, so it could take people by surprise. This is
the
actually
storm
live imagery of Chantal whilst we were looking at this. I wasn't expecting to talk about this just now, but we should give it a mention. Tropical Storm Chantal formed, I think, yesterday in the Western Atlantic. It wasn't around very much yesterday. As you can see this morning, it has just made landfall in the very northern extremity of South Carolina, moving into North Carolina now. Looking quite decent still at this point. National Hurricane Center giving it 50 miles per hour. And also, this is Tropical Storm Mun there, which is moving northwards and not looking very good at all. Okay, we've mentioned those two. We can move back on to the big story right now, which is Typhoon Danas, which is, as you can clearly see on these satellite imagery loops, very powerful typhoon moving in towards Taiwan, but very small. The wind field, the maximum winds will be over a very concentrated area. But because of its small size, it has potentially been allowed to strengthen more than what we may have expected.
Yeah. And this is, I'm showing cameras of where landfall is expected, which is going to be around Tainan City.
Yep.
And also, sorry if you guys
not-
hear noise in the background. I'm eating at the same time.
Ah. Well, we haven't heard What I was going to say, actually, the storm still might make landfall a little bit north of Tainan, even, Jack.
Yeah, it could. It's not a bad shout. But that is the closest to where the storm is right now. That is the best we're going to get.
Yeah,
Storm usually around
in
the-
terms geographically, we're talking something like 60-ish kilometers, which is not very much at this stage. And the speed that it's been moving, I'm just cross-checking hour-by-hour imagery right now, and it's
Still
probably
a lot of
about
rain.
20 kilometers per hour. But if it does keep moving in a straight line based on what it's been doing recently, landfall looks like it might be closer towards Chiayi County, which is north of Tainan. But
Yeah, I see it there.
I do expect that it will probably dip a little bit, and I would still say Tainan may well be the main spot for this. Now, if it does make a close pass because of the geography there, Jack, if it's skirting a little bit closer to the coast without making a full perpendicular landfall, that may mean that there's a possibility that it could start to fall apart before it actually hits. Taiwan is notable for being a massive typhoon killer. It on average drops typhoons by at least 2 categories when they hit. There is a little bit of a difference this time, though. It's the western coast, which 1 is more vulnerable, and 2 doesn't get steep as quickly as typhoons that hit the east coast.
Mm.
You want to come back on that, Jack?
Yeah, that's because Taiwan's mountainous terrain along the western side. And then, well, hilly terrain. And as we saw last year on the other side of Taiwan, with Typhoon Danas, that storm got completely shredded to bits. And of course, we had a storm approaching from a similar angle to Danas, which was Typhoon Krathon last year. Ample. And that was not far off from, I think Krathon made landfall just around Kaohsiung City, slightly to the south of Kaohsiung City, so sort of at the same angle. So I do expect this storm to take a hit before landfall or during landfall quite hard. And
I agree with you on that.
Chances of it leaving Taiwan still traceable is it's a 50-50, to be honest, because most storms get completely destroyed on Taiwan.
Honestly, last year was a blur to me. I scarcely remember.
To me
this.
too.
It's more the same. I mean, I animated the animation as well.
Indeed. Here's some real close-up imagery of the storm's progress in the last few hours, and it is looking pretty sinister. Water vapor imagery as well. Here it is. And to the layperson, I mean, not much to tell you. It's just the core is closed up massively. It's looking really good on satellite. I must say it's possibly not looking quite as good on radar imagery, but on satellite it is looking very impressive indeed. I'm trying to find which tab my radar tab is actually. I appear to have lost that one for the time being, but I think Jack's got it as well.
The radar tab.
Oh, that's it. Now, we just lost the. I think we just lost the radar coverage, or at least according to that last frame, either temporarily or.
Right. For temporary, it was temporary.
Yeah.
It was just for one frame. But that it's pretty much. It doesn't look so good on radar. Really.
It doesn't. It surprises me.
Radar is not. Yeah. It's not the main. It's not the main way you look at storms as radar. That's not how.
It's better than satellite,
So
Jack.
I think.
Certainly for identifying the structure.
Yeah.
But basically what this tells us though is it looks like it's in a state of flux. at least on that southeastern side on the radar, it was looking pretty bare. And so you suggested earlier, Jack, that it was an eyewall replacement cycle that we saw, and I've no reason to disagree with that.
That was Blaine, I think.
And was it? No, didn't you mention it first? I think you did.
Well,
I'm
one
not
of you
sure.
did.
No, on the stream.
It was one of you two. Well, it definitely wasn't me.
Yeah.
But
What's going on?
it certainly looks that way anyway.
Mm. Yeah, definitely.
In a second, we're going to see if we can cross over to some other types of imagery as well. If we just hang tight on this view for a second whilst we wait for that. And also an opportunity to start your comments and questions. Start your message with Force 13, all in text. We can talk about everything that's going on with this storm right now. And I'm just going to try and plug in some new imagery as we're watching this. So, just to clear things up for everyone watching right now, we are giving this storm an estimate of 120 mile per hour winds, which is about 185 kilometers per hour. Quite impressive. Category 3, that would be. Pressure estimate 949 millibars. This is way higher than what the agencies are currently giving it. We don't usually do that lightly. The Joint Typhoon Warning Center, their last update was a mere 90 miles per hour, and the Japan Meteorological Agency still only at around 80 miles per hour at present. However, we think it is much stronger, at least 120 miles per hour. Some raw satellite figures there from the last few frames suggesting more towards high-end Category 4 even. I can tell you that's probably not true in actuality, because
It doesn't look that way.
it has to hold on to that appearance for a while, and it has happened very quickly. It doesn't, doesn't really follow that it would be of that strength.
I mean, it doesn't. To my mind, that doesn't look like a Category 4, 3 at best.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's degraded a little bit on those latest frames, of course, and that might be the start of its weakening trend, hey Jack?
If
Perhaps.
it was, then
Yeah.
Oh no, why has it done that? Oh well.
What's happened now?
what's happened now?
It bugged a little bit, it's okay now.
Oh no!
I'm having a bit of connection with
Ah, yes.
Ah, right.
I can see the storm starting to weaken quite a bit now.
Yeah.
But the convection is still trying
Yeah.
on its southern side, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did I want to...
Christian, have you got anything to say? Oh no. you
What?
got anything to say, Christian?
Have I got anything to say? I mean, well, since I've been away, I've been out of the country for like a week with Nathan, so I haven't really been paying that much attention. And then as soon as I
Thought
got
we were
back,
going to keep
it's
that
just
one
been-
quiet, Christian.
No!
Wait, no, you
Come on,
never,
we're
you
talking
never,
about Dana.
you never said. Like I said, like as soon as I've been back,
I'm
it's
just
just been
messing.
busy in my end. It's just been non-stop busy my end. So I haven't really had a lot of time. I mean, I woke up about this morning and I log into the contributor hub. I'm seeing, oh, Chantal's here.
Yeah.
So that's how far behind I am. And then Danas was like not even that strong by the time I went to bed last night. And I'm waking up to it like being what the hell is this, basically. And
Well, it
and
certainly
that's
had the
been-
potential, and if you remember way back when, models were calling for this to be a massive beast, but on the other side of Taiwan after it cleared. I mean, that is much less likely to happen now, considering that it's actually going to hit Taiwan in the first place, so that's going to be a big complication from the storm's point of view. Just looking at some satellite-derived rainfall indicators right now, currently suggesting that the rain rate on land is going to be somewhere around the 10 to 15 millimeters per hour range, but when the core moves in probably the next 2 hours, those rain rates are going to skyrocket. They're going to go up to about, especially on the southeastern flank, it's going to be something like 50-ish millimeters per hour for a couple of hours. So this is when we really start to have the flash flooding concerns, when you get the core of the storm, obviously with those really strong winds too, which will be in excess of 160 kilometers per hour sustained in some areas. And at the moment, satellite-derived estimates indicating that it might be the southeast that's the strongest, although radar is not as promising from that to that effect. Looking at radar, I would suggest that it's going to be the northern side that is looking at the strongest at the moment, although there is a mean little sting on the southeastern side right now on the outer edges of the storm that's about to move through. Kaohsiung City is doing already at the moment, so that is one thing to consider. But and it's pushing tons of rainfall over onto the eastern side of the coast of Taiwan as well, which is looking very interesting indeed. Alright, let's see if we can take some questions right now. We did get quite a few earlier. How big is the typhoon now, and what is the eye core temperature as we continue to look at this viewpoint from Kaohsiung? Well, when we look back at the imagery, you'll note there that, again, people who are familiar with the scale of these storms usually, especially compared to Taiwan, it is small. It is pretty small. In fact, I don't know if we've got an image of the Western Pacific as a whole.
171 miles.
Okay. In fact, let me see if I can show you
Diameter.
this. Hopefully this works. The wider area. There we go. A little bit of a wider shot of the Pacific there. You can see the Philippines on the bottom left. Taiwan. Quite a compact storm.
It has a large outflow there.
Yep. Eastern side and southern side down there. Lots of extra moisture in the area. So I would say the core of this storm, relatively small, hovering around the 250 kilometer range in diameter. The eye is not actually that small as far as eyes go. It's going to be something like 20 to 25 kilometers wide. And then the whole of the storm's influence, I mean, if you count that massive chunky band, which is partly monsoonal, stretching down into the South China Sea, and then up to the northeastern periphery, which is also trying to get a circulation, by the way, off the northeastern tip of Taiwan, that's about nearly 1,800 kilometers for its whole influence area. But the storm itself is much, much smaller. I did see a question about eye temperature. Let me see what we've got depicted by satellite, what those eye temperature readings were before when it was looking at its best. It might take me a few minutes to get that though, so I'm just going to throw it back to this imagery. And I know that we've got rapid scan available as well, so I'm just going to see if I can get onto that. I'm having a couple of problems with getting the satellites running quickly, but obviously this gives you at least a decent view. But let me just switch to rapid scan once this is ready for me to process. The difference between normal imagery and the rapid scan is that the normal Himawari imagery is about 10 minutes, and the rapid scan is, in fact, I'm not sure okay, the 413 rapid scan isn't working. It's normal imagery there by the looks of things. Jack, do you have it?
Wait, what do you need?
Have you got the rapid scan imagery over there? If not, I'll go and try. I'm going to look at another source here. Anyway, Jack is showing us some visibles from earlier on today, when it really looked quite impressive.
and they look pretty nice. I think this is the latest I can go with it, because otherwise the map just goes blank. There we are.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Christian's
That was-
enjoying himself
I'm
over
sorry,
there with some Pringles.
Give a little bit of an interlude, but that looks beautiful. Wow.
I am going
We'll
to
see if I can get them
go
later.
for now.
Though, 'cause
Okay.
I should be able to.
If you guys need anything from me in terms of just providing any info, whatever, anything relating to the storm, don't hesitate to like ping me. But otherwise, I'm going to go for now. So yeah,
Okay.
okie dokie. See you all later.
Let's show you
Why?
another viewpoint
Sorry.
right now. This is the RAM rapid scan, so I can show you some form of rapid scan, and there is a little bit nicer looking 2.5 minute imagery of the storm as it's been approaching the coast. This goes up to 11:37 UTC, which is nearly an hour ago. Let's switch it from geocolor to one of the infrared views. There it is. Not looking quite as good in those latest frames. A little bit more disjointed. And I think that was going to happen when we were looking at that radar earlier. The weakness in the southeastern side looking quite apparent on satellite 2 actually. You see that little notch. Let me see if I can just annotate a little bit. You'll see a little... In fact, I've got a mouse that I can... Okay, I've got a mouse on the screen. Look around here. You see that little notch in there. Probably a bit of a dry slot. And that's where the radar is showing the storm a little bit weak as well. Radar showing the northern side is looking the best by some distance. And I'll cross back to that radar in a second. But on satellite again, northwestern side, maybe a little bit bare there too. This is definitely going to be a flash in the pan, this storm. It's probably already peaked. It is still very strong, and now it's going to be back on its way down. Let me just see if I can switch here. Ah, there's the radar again. Let's just show you this. And let's really zoom in on this to get an idea of where we're at right now. Northern side looking very, very impressive with those really dark colours. But if you look towards... Well, I'll just pan it over a little bit. Over here. That little area there, if you can see my mouse moving around. Moving into Kaohsiung City right now. Quite a chunky band that's moving through that whole urban area actually, up to Tainan and beyond. Really getting hit, or have recently been hit, with some significant rain showers there. Let's see if we can cross back to camera 4, which is the view in Tainan. And there it is again. A very wet scene. Still quite a few people out actually. To be fair, the wind doesn't look too crazy there. And I would imagine with such a compact storm as this, the winds will get up very quickly when the storm actually arrives. There's certainly some wind there. You can see it blowing, the rain blowing across the road. But still a fair bit of traffic, and hopefully people remain safe there. And back to Kaohsiung City here, this viewpoint. This is probably the most detailed view that we can show you tonight. Those trees swaying. You can just about see the tide there as well. Not seeing too much in the way of storm surge at this point. Really don't know what kind of quantity we'd be looking at in terms of storm surge, considering this has blown up so quickly. It's certainly not as big a storm surge as a storm that's had a few days to get itself to fill itself out and produce more and more energy. I'm just trying to answer your question from earlier though. I'm on the wrong thing again. We're going to keep looking at this webcam for a little bit whilst I try and grab some more little tools that we use to measure the eye temperature from earlier. Unfortunately this is on my other screen, I can't show you this here. but it certainly looks quite quite impressive to me when talking about things like eye temperature.
So what is this thing expected to do after Taiwan as well?
That is a less clear-cut story. And I will be showing everyone a little bit on the models later on.
Because according to the JTWC, after Taiwan, it has a hard left.
It could do. Taiwan does a lot of strange things to storms quite often. We know that from last year, don't we, with Typhoon Gaming, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to give people nightmares over that one, but
where it was approaching.
Indeed, it was. Okay, I'm just from earlier on. I'm just getting a read now on what the eye temperature was, and this is even more annoying because I've got to convert it from Kelvin.
Oh dear.
So the temperature was 3 degrees Celsius earlier. So when the storm was near its peak, the eye temperature was around 3 degrees Celsius. At least there may be, let me just see if I can get another read on that may have been, actually, that might be higher. Oh yes. So 7 degrees at 10:30 UTC. And then I think it improved a little bit more, actually.
And this is, I need to figure out where the exact coordinates of this system are. Figure if it has a Philippine name or not.
Well, it was Bising.
It was. Okay.
Yeah. So the storm peaked at an eye temperature of 8 degrees Celsius, as a matter of fact. And with the cloud tops that it had around it at that point, in the middle of there when the storm looked at its best, with all the reds and yellows, -70s into -80s cloud tops, I would say if it had held looking like that, that might have been a Category 5. But as it is weakening again. It's quite clearly starting to weaken again as we look at this imagery that we're looking at on the screen. Not quite as good as it was before. I think it could still be a major by the time it makes landfall. And I suppose someone may have already asked the question, I don't know, I've not looked yet, but I'll answer it anyway. When will it make landfall? The latest image here I've got from 12Z, which is half an hour ago, shows that the storm center is approximately 59 kilometers west of Tainan and 42 kilometers west of the westernmost point of Taiwan, which must have a name.
Starting to get really hairy over there.
Oh, let's have a look.
Yeah.
Here's some traffic
That's
cameras
what I
here.
believe it's the way you were talking about. Oh, it's just turned off.
I think you were in that
Okay,
kind of
there you
area. Anyway, it wasn't
That
far
was it.
from Kiku district,
Oh,
the westernmost point of
This
Taiwan,
area
and
here.
that's 42 kilometers, pretty much the closest point on land, unless you count some of those islands offshore, because there are some islands offshore that
camera's
are.
on now.
Yep. There are some offshore islands that are closer to the storm center. Kimi, for instance, I'm not sure about the pronunciation there, 31 kilometers at present. And there is another small island to the east, which I am not sure of the name. It's 29 kilometers. And another island, which again I'm not sure the name of that island, 29 kilometers. These are all in South Penghu County. So those outlying islands in the southern part, they're the closest currently to the center of this quite powerful typhoon. Let's get some more comments and questions right now. What does it look like down in Taiwan? Well, we showed a couple of webcams just before. We'll be checking in with those regularly. What's the strongest storm to make landfall on Taiwan's west side? I'll get back to you on that. Off-topic question, but why is our analysis of Hurricane Eric a Category 3? Because certainly it's preliminary at the moment. It's going to have some review. But it was a very strange set of circumstances with Eric. National Hurricane Center were not convinced when the storm was showing its satellite peak that it was anywhere near Category 4 status. And then the storm started to look worse, and then they called it a Category 4. So I'm not sure what to tell you about that. If you're going on... and Recon, of course, was there too beforehand. So it's a question mark. Definitely a question mark. At least a strong Category 3, though, Eric. And I was going to answer the question about landfall time as well. So, judging by the last, let's say, hour, and boy, has this storm degenerated in the space of 1 hour. It's moved about 25 kilometers. If it keeps moving in the same direction, it's may even be in Yunlin County by the time it makes landfall. If it keeps going that way, 80 kilometers away. That will give it a lot more time for the storm to actually weaken before it makes landfall. But if it does turn a little bit more towards the right, which I would say is more likely, 41 kilometers from land. So at a speed of 25 kilometers per hour there, that's just less than 2 hours potentially. Or if it goes further north, then it could be more like 4 hours, 3 or 4 hours. So yeah, about 25 kilometers per hour is the movement speed in the last hour alone. But obviously very impressive how this storm has managed to blow up in the way it did in the first place. Let's see if we can show you something else at this point. I could show you this. It's not what I usually show you these days, but this is that rainfall estimator that I was talking about earlier. But let's, I'm going to see if I can show you the imagery I was looking at on my other screen when I was describing it and not able to actually show you. Let's just try and find that. There's so many buttons we've got to press here to get stuff going. Okay, this is probably the most impressive looking imagery. This is real Earth of the storm. Look at it right now. There's the 1210 frame that's just come in. Not quite as impressive compared to what it did look like here. 1020. Look at that. And even more impressive when we got to around 11 AM UTC. Or maybe it was a bit earlier than that actually. So the peak was gonna probably just before 10 or around 10 AM UTC, which local time was about 5 PM. That's what it did look like, and that's what it looks like now. Definitely a sign of a storm that's past its peak, is starting to get found out with land interaction probably, but also the weakness in the southeastern side that we've been watching. Let's check some latest radar frames. Okay, well actually, it's trying to fill back in. Southeast side there, trying to fill back in on those latest frames, just at the last minute. So this storm is putting up a fight. But I can tell you here that, look, there's no real sign of it slowing down. So it doesn't look like we're going to have shenanigans like we did last time, like with Gamey. It does, and you would expect that from a storm moving in this direction. It's being lifted up, it's being pulled northeastwards, and that's the kind of motion that's very difficult to slow down quickly. However, it still might do that when it gets onto the other side of Taiwan. It's probably going to slow down as it moves overland gradually, and certainly a big rain-making potential. Okay, well at this point, let's show you what the GFS model is currently saying about this. Here's how it generated the storm at the most recent run,
What?
which would have been the 6C run. Yes, Christian? Any thoughts on this?
Now I'm just having a look. I mean, just the blue that goes all the way around Taiwan.
Ah, so it initialized this storm at a relatively weak 82 miles per hour, when in fact it's closer to 120. Bear that in mind. Relatively straightforward landfall. In fact, what is the landfall time there? Right about there. That's about 3 hours from now, maybe 4. So it's not going to be super quick, but it's on its way. Then what does it do? It moves through. I'm not sure if this is the circulation or whether it just got stuck over here or something and that's a new attempted circulation. I think that must be the circulation there that's moved through very quickly, actually. I don't know what happened there. It sort of looks like the storm went through this way and disappeared somewhere along here, and out of it has come a starting point for a new system. Well, not a new system, but a new circulation from the same storm. That might happen. Weaker. Those greens there are a tropical storm strength, so up to 75 miles per hour, 120 kilometers per hour, less than that. And then it does continue. I'll just trace the track as it goes along here. So it's there now. It does a big turn, U-turn really, continuing now towards the coast of China, continuing relatively weak, mid-range tropical storm into the Chinese coast. Still traceable actually down there. It's gone down here. What? That is still the same. Oh no. Okay, I am actually seeing this for the first time as well. It's back. Off it goes again. Oh dear. Oh my goodness.
Two, fight!
No, stop it. This is outrageous from the GFS there. I mean, it's a week after it makes that first landfall, but that is basically the projected track that it wants to do.
What?
Yeah, you saw that. Watch again. There it is moving through along the coast of China. U-turn again. Off it goes, north of Taiwan that time, and then eventually becomes frontal, yes?
I did some research. You won't believe what I found to be the strongest typhoon to make landfall directly on western Taiwan is. I'm pretty sure I found it out to be Wayne 1986.
Yes.
So
that
Wayne
beast.
is the strongest, which is the Cat 1.
Just looking at real long range here, this is very long range right now. Some massive storms that are trying to form there, but this is pretty par for the course at this time of year. Everything gets very messy and sloppy. Also, Mun over there. GFS initializing that as a 75-mile-an-hour typhoon. It's an exposed circulation right now. I do not believe that one bit. I do not believe that one bit. Nonetheless,
It looked better before.
there was a possible threat to Japan. Not anymore. It's not going to threaten Japan. Then later on, these massive systems.
It had like, I think it had like an eye for like a very short period.
Let's just check the rest of the world very briefly whilst we can. So first of all, we've got Chantal making landfall. Looks like there's a storm-related tornado warning there active right now in North Carolina. You can see it here. Not far from South Bath, Aurora in that tornado warning.
We are now joined by Ethan.
Oh, hi Ethan. We'll get to you in just a second. Just looking at what happens to Chantal. Dies off very quickly as it moves into North Carolina. Already doing so right now. Off it goes. Long range Atlantic fans. I don't think you've got much luck going at the minute, but it is still only July. Nothing on the forecast else. Eastern Pacific has also crashed and burned a little bit as well. There were supposed to be 3 storms on the way, and we may not get one now. I'm sure Ethan's got something to say about that in a sec. And the North Indian Ocean,
Perfect timing.
quiet. South Indian Ocean, GFS did want a little thing here at one point. It is just about still there, but I'd highly doubt that will actually form. Let's go back to the current imagery of Danas at this point as it gets ever closer to the coast of Taiwan. And Ethan, your thoughts? Welcome aboard.
Well, first off, what a turn of events last night.
You're super quiet, Ethan.
I apologize. But what a turn of events from last night. You know, whenever I was doing the tropical weather outlook for last night, I only had Danas at 90 miles per hour, and here we are at 120 now.
Would you agree with our assessment?
I probably would at this time, just simply because of the eye appearance, although I would be cautious that that could change in post analysis.
In what sense?
Maybe a 5 mile per hour up or down trim.
Well, that is
Depending
understandable.
depending on how long this appearance holds, you know. The storm could come back, but recent appearances tell me not. It might be starting to land a direction with Taiwan and maybe going on a weakening trend here, but
I don't
only time
know.
will tell, you know.
Radar's
you know, this
really...
thing-
Have you seen radar? Radar's really trying
I
again.
have. It might be dealing with some wind shear, maybe some very little amounts of it, but I do think that there is a chance for the storm to re-strengthen here before it makes landfall in Taiwan. It is forecast to make landfall in Taiwan now, right?
Oh yeah, it's a very... We're talking a very short time now. Maybe a couple of hours, 2 to 4 hours to landfall.
I would probably play it safe and only forecast a Category 2 landfall, though.
Probably. That's a tough one.
The main reason is Danas is a very small storm. It's got a very small core, and as it nears Taiwan, that mountainous terrain is going to start to affect the storm pretty quick, if not already.
Well, it did look like
to
that,
chip in on that,
but it looks like it's giving it one
this
more
storm-
go, yeah?
this storm's heading towards the western coast of Taiwan, not the eastern coast. And storms that pass through the western coast of Taiwan usually don't get much of a hit as storms that hit the eastern coast right off the bat.
Well, it's still
Because
got to
this
traverse the
storm, it
mountains
looks
and
like
it's
it can
got
go
a
to the southern.
tiny core, but it will abort itself just a little bit extra time when it first makes
That's
landfall.
exactly what. Yeah.
I mean, that's another factor there. Tiny core, very susceptible to disruption. We're just looking at some of the webcams again. Tainan there, really wet now on this shot, and it is being buffeted by another red area on the radar. I imagine Kaohsiung will be as well at this point. Let's go back to that webcam. Well, that's gone out of focus now. So there's not much we can infer at all from this shot anymore, apart from that it's rocking and rolling and it's windy. Live view there from Kaohsiung City. Just see if the camera's trying to focus back in or not. I think it won't manage. But nonetheless, that is the view there at the beach at Kaohsiung City. This is Force 13 Live. Update on this major typhoon which is approaching the coast of Taiwan right now. On the left there you can see that last JTWC advisory, and let's talk about these agencies, Ethan. I don't know if we've got an ATCF update yet.
I know, that's what I was going to look.
No, we don't. I don't think. We've got an update on Chantal on the ATCF, down to 35 knots. 40 miles per hour, but no updates on Danas yet.
Terrible sort over there.
But just saying that the last update was 90 miles per hour, way too low, isn't it?
They've always been too low, really.
Yeah, but wait
And
till you hear
they
what
were-
JMA went with.
Oh, I know. I know that they're down to 80 miles per hour. I know. But GTWC, they've been all over the place with both of these storms.
When do we expect updates from both agencies?
I'm not sure. JMA and JWC have the same update time at the moment, both from nearly 6 hours ago now, about 4 hours ago. But still, it was borderline Category 3 then. I should also point out that JMA is not actually expecting a landfall.
We'll see
You
who
heard
wins
me.
out between.
JMA is expecting the storm to clip the western coast all the way up and not quite make a landfall, but it looks like it's going to.
We will see who wins out at the end of the day.
I think the JTWC's forecast is better. And that's what's being displayed on the screen here, just for those who weren't sure. Actually, I can show you the JMA's cone. Here it is. So obviously Taiwan well within the cone. But if you try and follow the center line, yeah, that stays offshore.
Yeah.
And that would probably be a good scenario, or a better scenario. The storm is probably going to capitulate if it gets any closer.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the JMA scenario is a better one because if the strongest
gonna
winds
weaken
stay out
quickly.
to sea, then
But I don't see this being true.
But I will say
they
though,
also expect the storm to curve over to the left.
Yeah,
will
both
say, though,
forecasts do.
All
I
right.
will say though, hats off to the GFS for getting this storm somewhat right.
Did they, though?
For the past few days, it was forecasting a major typhoon out of that cluster of thunderstorms near the Philippines, and
After
well,
Taiwan,
it got it
though.
right. Yeah, it was having it way to the east of Taiwan.
It was.
It got the major part right, but it got the track completely wrong.
So it's not really a glowing endorsement, is it? But
No, and it never.
Yeah,
it
I
never
think the
really
later,
was.
but
I'm
forecast.
okay with it because sorry, person, I apologize. But it's okay because models really all over the place with the storm's track, so it never really was certain.
it was an uncertain forecast, definitely. Low confidence forecast. I should point out here that some of those southernmost islands in Penghu County are on the edge of the eye right now. Certainly on satellite it looks that way. I'm just checking radar, it looks like it might be a bit further. In fact, if I could just get a radar latest frame, just so that we can... Oh, look at this, Ethan. It's looking much better on the latest frame. Latest radar frame here. I think you can follow my mouse. It's a little magnifying glass at the minute. Well, that's obviously the eye where I'm circling, but just follow my mouse a little bit northwards. Those here are these islands that are very close to the eye, really getting
Sorry, I'm just
slammed.
putting your stream down.
Yep, these southernmost islands here are really getting slammed. Penghu County. Kimei is the westernmost island there. All through those islands there, they're getting hit. Look further towards the right though. This is the coast of Taiwan itself. Tainan is somewhere underneath this big red chunky band right now. Kaohsiung is a little bit further south. Looks like there's a tiny gap for them right now, but more heavy rain shortly. Anything else of note on here? Not really. From that perspective.
We have an update in the casual room.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure where this is from though. It might be from the JMA. I mean, I need some expert opinions on this.
Let me see if I can have a look for myself just a second. So, this is JMA, by the looks of it.
Yeah.
JMA update, they're upgraded it to a Typhoon. I think I've got the update on the JMA page as well, actually. Yes, we've got the update on their website here. So here we are.
Oh, perfect.
So JMA Typhoon now, 65 knot 10 minutes sustained, which is around 85 miles per hour. Still way too low. Pressure estimate 970. Still way too weak. Are they forecasting a landfall now, though? It's really close. I think it just about is a landfall, somewhere around here. Yep, clipping land a little bit more now, so...
You can turn on the center.
Oh yeah, I'm blind as a bat. Okay, there we are. That's the center line. Landfall, grazing landfall, really, inland. Off it goes again later. Interesting that they now expect it to maintain intensity all the way through that crossing, though. And then
what?
Yes, and then weakening. Yeah, they're expecting it to maintain intensity here for the next 12 hours.
I beg your pardon.
I know. It's difficult to believe, isn't it?
That's not gonna happen. We saw what happened with... What was that storm's name last year?
Gamey? Thing is,
No.
though, Gamey approached from the eastern side. Oh.
He's talking
no.
about another storm.
Yeah, I
You're
got
talking
it.
about
Later on in
Krathon?
the year. Yes, Krathon. That storm moved very slowly towards the northeast, made landfall in Taiwan as a category 1, category 2. I'm not sure what I went with for the animation. But that storm, 12 hours after it made landfall, as a typhoon, was dead. So, like circulation was gone and everything. Gone.
Okay, let's take a question. How far is the typhoon now away from landfall? Just checking the latest estimate now. Okay, this is as of half an hour ago. It is 37 kilometers from land. I'm just going to try and extrapolate. Get a little idea of where it is now. It won't have changed very much. It's probably around 35 kilometers away from landfall at this point. So the breaking news there then is that the Japan Meteorological Agency have upgraded the storm now to a typhoon, believe it or not, even though it clearly is a quite strong typhoon and has been for a while. And they expect that it will not lose intensity in the next 12 hours as it grazes the whole west coast of Taiwan. It is less mountainous on that side, granted, but I really cannot see it holding intensity unless the JMA are compensating for lowballing the current intensity, then hey, I mean, I can understand it being 85 miles an hour after the crossing, which is what they're forecasting.
I don't know about that.
I'm not even sure it would be that strong either, but it's certain more likely, clearly. I don't know. Here's a new image here on one of my preferred kinds of imageries. This infrared view. This is from Real Earth. That's how it looked earlier, by the way.
Still no ATC ethics either.
I'm sure it will arrive soon. And needless to say, the whole Taiwan region under a typhoon warning. The only places exempted from that are Kinmen and Lianqiang counties, which are nestled along the coast of China. But that's the latest satellite view, showing a weakness on the western side. I'm not sure that correlates to radar, however. Latest radar. Still looking pretty good, I gotta say, radar. It doesn't have that that really powerful tight core, but it is trying to close up the eastern side of that eye there. In terms of what radar is indicating, heaviest of the rain now centered on the northwestern side of the storm's influence, or the storm's core. Oh, I forgot to show you this as well. This was the National Hurricane Center cone for Tropical Storm Chantal earlier on. May as well show you this now. The 5 AM advisor. Your thoughts, Ethan, on Chantal? Terrible?
No.
No. Simply
Terrible
no.
season. Terrible season. I hope it continues.
But what happened to the East Pac, Ethan? What went wrong? There were supposed to be 3 storms by now. It looks like we're going to get none.
Simple. There's just a lot of wind shear. You can see it on the satellite imagery for 96E. I do think that there is a slight chance that it might have another shot at forming, but time is running out. I do think that more activity does lie ahead, though, as the MGO will be moving into the East Pacific towards the end of the month.
So a little while to wait, but it's certainly been a feisty start, hasn't it, to East Pac hurricane season.
To date, it is the most active ever recorded to date. Still.
Wow. This is Invest 96E for those wondering.
Although that record will be stripped away from the season very shortly if 96E doesn't form.
Yeah, well, there it is. It could still squeeze out a brief tropical storm out of this, though.
It could. At one point we were thinking that this is going to be a pretty big hurricane, and well, it's certainly not going to be there anymore.
Christian?
I have no idea. Like, I don't know. Like I said, I've been out of the tropics, so I haven't really even looked so much as even looked at 96E.
Let me try and find some more stuff to show you here. Let's go back to some of the traffic cameras that we've got over there in Taiwan, and some of them will be getting mighty close to the storm now. Cameras can be a little bit temperamental sometimes, but let's see how they're looking, if we can get them. Well, that one's down.
I mean, what's this image that
still
Jack's posted in the... Yeah. What's this image that Jack's posted in the live output room?
I'll have to go and check that.
Alright.
Looking quite windy there near the coastal areas, very close to the storm. And like we said, it's only about, not much at all, only about 35 kilometers here from the center of the eye to some of these areas that we're looking at. A little bit further north, you can see water pooling there, and really windy on that camera. I know it's a tiny screen, but really windy there. That camera's down. So's that one. I think all the ones on that road are. There's another viewpoint. Blowing rain all across that road there. Let's see if we can go a bit further south. This is Tainan, I believe. Queuing traffic there on the right. And this is near the coast. Again, very wet and wild. This camera certainly looking a little bit more dramatic than the others as well. Of course, it depends how these cameras are mounted. Sometimes the wind effect could be exaggerated.
Oh, also got another update from
ATCF
another
update?
update from the ATCF. Yeah,
Go ahead, Ethan.
90
knots.
105 miles per hour, 964 millibars.
So they haven't dropped the pressure at all, and it's still not enough wind, I don't think. It's been a massive
No, not nearly
explosion of intensity of this storm in the last few, earlier on today. A lot of these cameras aren't showing in the Kaohsiung area. Let's go take a look at some of our on the ground cameras as well. View from Tainan once again here. Very steady rainfall by the looks of things. Must be quite a sheltered location here, not seeing much in terms of wind. And still...
Very high road, very built up area that.
Yep, and a few motorists still out there. Looks like the focus has improved again on the other camera we were looking at Kaohsiung City. There it is again. And certainly getting rather windy here. Camera's jiggling about a lot more than it did earlier.
Yes, that's indicative of high wind speed.
But we just don't know how high, because these cameras are all different. It could be a... Well, this is clearly quite elevated, so that's going to enhance the winds a little bit. How well is the camera mounted? All that kind of stuff.
I mean, it's got to be one of those cameras that's been through a couple of earthquakes, so hopefully it's mounted pretty well.
Then again, earthquakes are usually more on the eastern coast as well. This is west, but... Was that a cat?
That was a cat.
Yeah, that's actually
Is a question, when will Danas turn into a remnant? That is a good question, because it will be... If you believe the GFS model, it's going to be barely hanging on to tropical storm status for a while after it passes Taiwan. So will it actually get to remnant low or not? Let's see if there's some more questions. CVK says, could we have a look at the shear graphics? You got any of those, guys? I can go and get them if not.
What graphics, sorry?
Shear maps, basically.
I
We would
don't.
like to see some shear maps.
I don't know where to even get them. Apparently Solom's telling us, expect this to be overridden.
Maybe.
No, yeah. No changes to pressure from 6 Zulu means an override is coming, according to Solom.
We'll see what happens. I'm working on the wind shear question over there. I will go and... does that page still work? See, half the time some of these pages don't work anymore either. That I used to have bookmarked or whatever else. So just give us a couple of moments on that and we'll be able to look at some of the world shear maps from Sims. Yeah, yes, there's a cat there in the background still.
That was the other one.
The other, you've got two.
Well, yeah.
They're both there.
Yeah.
That's quite concerning.
Because it's 9 a.m. and the rest of my family's still probably sleeping in. And my dad and I are the only two awake, and he's in the garage working on the car. And
Right.
I'm stood here on this stream, and therefore, since I'm the only person that's awake in the house, because they can hear me talking, they're all like, let's just go into his room and let's just ruin his live stream. Yes.
They love you, really.
Okay, here's some shear maps right now. First of all, looking at the Atlantic, you can just about make out Chantal there, moving inland. It was doing pretty well. It had relatively low shear when it was developing, around 15 knots. It is entering a high shear environment anyway, so even if it was over water, its days were going to be numbered. In general, in the Atlantic, there is a lot of wind shear right now, Ethan, isn't there?
Yep.
That 50 knots at that one point down there as well.
50 knots in a few spots there, so still very sheared. Not many opportunities for the Atlantic at the moment, but like we said, it is still early.
There never will be.
Eastern Pacific, though, actually is looking quite good, Ethan, in a few of those spots. especially if you find storms further south, but they just haven't been in those areas yet, have they?
No, it's too early in the season for those storms to be farther towards the south.
Yeah.
Like I keep alluding to whenever I'm talking about the Eastern Pacific going forward. I think wait until the late half of July into August, and then we'll start to see some more.
I'm trying to get this thing to
long
show.
tracking systems for the go to the south.
So Ethan, is this 96E on the right?
Yeah, it's being there's a system to its north that's shearing it. That's what's inhibiting development right now.
It's riding a decent shear line though. Is this it here?
It is.
Is that it, or is it further right?
It's probably further east. What's the coordinates you have?
What is the coordinate of the system?
Stand by.
Is it about 110?
It's around 110. Yeah.
So it's that one here. So it's just leaving a high shear environment, and it's going to be moderate for a while. Depends on what happens to its north. It's not over for this system yet. Not over.
No. But I believe any further north that it goes, it's going to go into colder waters.
And this is the Western Pacific shear map right now. Danas right here. And it's starting to enter higher wind shear as well. It was 5 knots earlier. It's now up to about 15 and rising. Really high shear environment to its north. I imagine it's going to be like one of these exposed circulations that throw up loads of convection later on, when it's hovering around China doing whatever the track it's doing on that forecast.
GTWC had it eventually at GTWC had Mun at one point at 70 miles per hour when it was nowhere near that.
No way. You seeing it right now? It looks appalling.
I know.
And that is rapidly entering a high shear environment as well. I think it's curtains for that storm very shortly.
It looks just as bad. It looks just as bad as Chantal does.
Actually, I think it looks worse than Chantal.
Don't give the Atlantic any credit.
Don't give the Atlantic any credit. This Ethan is super against the Atlantic, folks. So there's going to be some battles going on, I think, later this season. Alright, we're still watching Typhoon Danas, which is heading towards the coast of Taiwan. We are currently giving it winds of 120 miles per hour. Estimate pressure at 949 millibars. Moving northwesterly at this point at around 25 kilometers per hour, and is expected to make landfall in probably the next 2 to 3 hours, depending on exactly which direction this storm is moving. We've got our multi-panel displays. We've got quite a few lined up here today. Here's one of them showing the JTWC cone alongside some recent imagery of the storm. You can access pretty much all the imagery that we're showing because they're from our own website, pulsar13.com. I think it's done a little bit of a wobble there right next to those islands. Certainly on satellite imagery, but on radar it shows something quite different.
We've got quite an interesting question coming in from our very own Jack, who's not available to be on camera at the minute. What do you expect storm surge to be like?
I have no idea because it's spun up very quickly, so that means the storm surge is going to be a bit smaller. Obviously the strength it has is going to mean that there's a storm surge. I would probably estimate up to 10 feet.
Still enough to stop another person, me especially.
Yeah. 2 Christians would get sunk.
Yep.
Very compact system though, isn't it, Ethan? The core of this storm.
Yeah.
Why do you hear rain in the stream's background? Jack, that's because of the simulated imagery in the lower right.
Yes, we thought we'd put that on there just to add a little bit of atmosphere, and it is a faithful representation of what conditions might actually look like down there. Of course, we've got actual viewpoints as well, and we've been showing them on and off, and we'll cycle through them again here. Mainly just these two that we keep throwing you to, the best cameras that are available. Tainan, looking quiet now. Really heavy rainfall though. And again, that camera at Kaohsiung City, which is really getting drenched and quite windy. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the water level there has increased a little bit, the shoreline.
That's your sturge coming in, maybe. Who knows?
Potentially. I've no information about tide times or anything like that, though.
Actually, I can try and dig those up. Let's see what I can find here.
So, the news in the last hour then. We started this stream just over an hour ago with this storm being 120 miles an hour, 949 millibars. And we're sticking by that at the moment. JTWC started at 80 miles per hour. They've now upgraded to 105. Maybe more if there's going to be an override. And the JMA, the Japan Meteorological Agency, they're the officials in this area. They started this stream at 80 miles per hour and have now upped it just a little bit to 85, roughly equivalent anyway. And are only just acknowledging it as a typhoon in the first place.
Still
Right,
not the strongest storm of the Northern Hemisphere so far, though.
No.
Right,
No, it
I've
isn't.
come up with times for, I'm gonna horribly mispronounce these, Kaohsiung Fangliao, I believe.
Okay.
You know what,
This
I'll
area
just
then,
turn my
I think.
screen on. Well, I hope. I will, for one, I'll just turn my music off just in case. But I will. This is basically the times here. Now, I mean, I'm struggling to understand this as is.
No. So, okay, we're going into low tide right now. It basically is the info here. So that's some good news there about from a surge perspective. We're pretty much at low tide right now.
This is,
So from that perspective, that's some good news about that. And thanks for bringing that to our attention.
You're welcome.
I will just spend 1 second replacing my headset, unfortunately.
Huh?
Okay, we're back here. This is a live view from Kaohsiung City looking out towards, I assume, the city itself, and obviously the coast. Getting very windy at this location. Thomas in the chat there, still quiet in Taichung. And if there are any other people in these areas right now on the ground, sometimes the reports that you can give us are invaluable. If it is safe to do so, please get in touch. Let's go back and cycle through some of the satellite imagery views and update them as we're going along. So this is our dual panel look at the infrared plus RGB visible / now infrared as it's nighttime. And this has been the storm's progress in the last few hours. It looked better earlier, but that is clear now. But it is still packing some significant strength. It looks like it's tightening up and closing in again on radar. I'm getting quite impressed with this.
Well,
Let's show you
radar
this.
has to translate to physical appearance, and that doesn't always equal the case.
Radar supersedes satellite appearance even. I mean, we know that from seeing
mean-
some of these terrible Atlantic storms, right?
Just looking at it now, I mean, the eastern side has had a gap again.
There is still a gap there, but it has closed up a lot. But it is drawing closer and closer to land. We're trying to triangulate a position based on that radar imagery. Probably a little bit further back than what I first thought, although what is the last timestamp there? Only 10 minutes ago, actually. So we're still talking something like 35 kilometers away from the coast. Very close, really. You think of the radius of maximum winds, Ethan, they'll extend out, what do you reckon, nearly that far?
Probably.
So it could be the case that some of these places are about to receive the real worst part that they're going to get from this storm. Still a few vehicles going along in the vicinity there. This is the view again from Tainan.
Oh, you're getting some great lightning shots on your simulated imagery there.
Yeah, a couple. But that is only simulated.
That is, yeah.
We'll check back in with that in a second, but we're just looking at these real shots from Tainan right now. And let's just cross over to this as well. I know it's a tiny shot, but this is from some of the road cams, the traffic cameras. Really blowing along this road. This is also in Tainan. There's another shot here, around the northern side of Tainan, looking quite impressive at the moment. Vehicle's still going along, looking quite fast there, if I do say so. But conditions clearly deteriorating still in this area. Let's swing around a little bit further south. Right next to the coast there, no one on that particular road. But getting awfully windy indeed here in various parts.
I am back.
Welcome back.
Sorry for the minor detour I took.
It's okay.
Yeah.
So Jack, do you think it's weakening yet at this point, or is it holding intensity, do you think?
I feel like it is holding on quite well at the moment. to be
There has
honest.
been a pressure override.
There have been
They are
things
going...
lost.
Sorry to interrupt, Jack. There's a pressure override on the ATCF. They're now running 958.
Alright. What are we running with again?
949.
Ah, so still a little bit
Still,
too
we're
high.
still way too high. Way too high.
You think
So
that's too
someone
high?
was right.
You think it's below 949?
No, I'm saying that
The 958.
958.
So someone was right. He did tell us to expect an override, and there it is.
A drop of 6 millibars compared to the initial update. This is a look at all of these viewpoints during this typhoon. A typhoon warning for pretty much all of Taiwan, all of the main island of Taiwan and Penghu County, and the islands off the eastern coast as well, I believe. The only places not implicated in the typhoon warnings are Kinmen County and the Lianxiang counties, which are right along the coast of China. A very powerful Category 3 typhoon that's about to move into land here on the western side of Taiwan, the more unusual side. So Jack, you said earlier that Wayne was the strongest landfall in western Taiwan, and that was only a Category 2, wasn't it?
think it was borderline Cat 2, Cat 1. I have no idea. I know
Yeah.
officially it was a Cat 1. I have no idea what we
Right.
did for it, but it was only a Cat 2.
So there's a massive chance that this will be a stronger landfall than that.
Yeah, and it looks like one of the islands, like had like it doesn't look like a landfall, but it looks like a very close pass to one of the islands. It had a
Those
little
really
blip
small
going back
islands.
towards the island.
It may look like that on
Yeah.
satellite, but on radar it looks like it's a bit further southeast.
Hmm.
But I know what you mean when we
Under-
look at satellite pictures.
Sorry,
I think it's
bit of
gonna get a little bit further north than we think in North Yunnan County coast. Sorry, Christian.
I was just going to say a little bit of aviation news,
Alright.
since we're into that now. A storm near the Spirit Airlines maintenance facility in Detroit accidentally triggered the fire suppression system, causing foam to fill inside the hangar and area around it.
Wow.
There is video as well, so I mean, it's the
I seriously think this storm will make landfall in Yunlin County, to be honest.
It could be that far
a lot
north.
further north. Because the storm has started to shift slightly more towards the west.
I think you're right. Let's try and get... Just a second, I'm going to see if I can get a radar view that's not centered on the storm, but centered on Taiwan, so you can get a bit of a grasp of the actual storm's movement a bit better. Because we can also do that here. Here it comes. So this is... Okay. I think that movement's pretty much arrow straight. At the moment, that would project towards a landfall, probably still in Chiayi County, near Dongxi, is where I'd currently expect the landfall location, but maybe the possibility it will just shoot north of
There
the
is a large, like that large peninsula that comes out from in between two rivers. One of them rivers being the bay.
Which peninsula?
That could be. There's a peninsula sort of that sticks out, North Dyke. I think it's like a wetlands and forest park.
I see it.
That
Yeah, it's
that sticks out quite a bit. Looks like about
unpopulated wetland area.
yeah. But then once it goes through there, it will then enter a populated area in Kaohsiung.
lightning strikes are coming up everywhere around my local
Which is
area.
in Yunnan County, so it'll be very close. It's a close gamble between these two counties, it looks like. I do still think it might hit Yunnan County, to be honest.
Fascinating.
But it'll be very close.
Let's see if we can take some more comments at this point. Start your message with Force 13 all in text, and we'll be able to take a look at those. Oh, there was a question earlier. Do we think Andrea or Barry shouldn't have been named? Alright, I think we've all got opinions on these two. Whilst we're just in a little bit of a lull here. Andrea,
Barry,
first of all,
probably
should have been
But
named
Andrea,
earlier.
no.
Andrea should have been named earlier than they did it. And it was already pretty much dead by the time they did name it. They were too late. They were too late.
Exactly.
But it was worth naming a little bit earlier on. Definitely nameable storm. Barry, I'm still not sure.
definitely was
I've given
nameable.
it the benefit of the doubt.
Really?
Yeah, because ASCAT and microwave. ASCAT, no, actually, I don't think, but microwave looked like. Was it just my? I can't remember if ASCAT did as well, but I was convinced there was a low-level circulation under there. Even though the upper levels looked absolutely appalling. Now that is another question, though, whether was the convective pattern so poor that Barry didn't deserve to be named? That is a possibility. But it definitely had a low-level circulation. So that's basically my thoughts on those two storms. Jack? Oh, it's gone.
I think
Oh.
Barry did. I think Barry was good enough to be named, but Andrea, like as you said, they named it too late. I don't think they should have named it at all, really, because if you've missed it, you've missed it.
They were desperate to name it before it got away from them, weren't they?
Yeah.
So I just want to point out this imagery that we're looking at right now. It is potentially deceptive. You can see some of those tiny islands, the southernmost extents of Penghu County. It's looking like the eye's pretty much passing over those islands, but radar is showing that the eye is a little bit further southeast than what the upper levels are showing us here. So the current speed of the storm is roughly 25 kilometers per hour northeasterly.
What does that remind me of?
What's that?
The storm shape reminds me of another storm that I can't remember now.
Apparently we didn't use the right scale or whatever for the 10-minute winds. I don't really know. All I know about that is that the
I feel like
JMA have only just called it a typhoon, so that tells you sort of what you need to know. It's still that they're still well behind the curve, as were the Joint Typhoon Warning Center.
It appears that Taiwan has been battered in the past few years by storms.
In the last 1 year, right?
Oh. In the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's a fair comment.
Because in 2023 there was Kuei and Coin. And of course last year there was Gaming, Typhoon, and Conway. And then this year we've already got one before any of those years in what's the word I'm looking for? In reference to what time of year the storms have come. Danas has been the earliest one storms though. At Taiwan of any years.
And we also had the Julia Main who keeps telling us that MSM is saying it's already a Category 4. No, I don't know who's telling you that, but no. it briefly had the raw appearance of a Category 4, but that does not make it an actual Category 4. Has to maintain.
Who's MSM?
I'm not sure, but no, it's small. It did look good very briefly, too briefly to call it a Category 4 storm here. But nonetheless, it is still a very powerful, significant, dangerous Category 3, by our estimate, typhoon, which isn't official. Officially it's a Category 1 somehow. And JTWC, Category 2. As we look back at the latest viewpoint here from Tainan at this point. More rainfall continuing there, and wind blasting all of that rain across that intersection there. And back to that other camera at Kaohsiung City. You can see the tide on the right there. The good news about this is that the tide is out. And so storm surge impacts should be mitigated. I've not seen any surge yet, in fact, from the traffic cameras or from this camera here. And you might have a point there. Land-induced wind shear may already be taking its toll on this storm. It's still giving it a good go, I feel, especially when we look back at radar imagery, which still, to me, looks impressive. As we're looking at this again now, although maybe just falling away again just slightly on that right hand side, and those dark reds on the northern side have just gone a little bit lighter as well. Maybe this is the start of this storm's real downfall, but we'll have to see. We should have new updates, a new cone from the JTWC probably in about the next hour. As soon as we get any info on that, we'll let you know. But on the left hand side there is their last cone, which in terms of track estimate might actually be a good forecast there. It's pretty much followed it so far. And our distances from land on our bottom bar there are a little bit outdated now. We estimate now that the distance from land is approximately, still trying to figure that out actually, somewhere in the area of 30 kilometers at this point now, around 30 kilometers off land. Just checking radar to try and give you a fix here. And to me it really looks like I would fix it probably about 29 kilometers due west of the westernmost point of Taiwan, which is near Kigu district. And that would put it 50 kilometers from Tainan and 77 kilometers from Kaohsiung. And quite important news actually here, because it would appear that the storm has now made its closest pass to Kaohsiung City. So from this point forward, the storm is probably very slowly at first. It is still near its closest point, but it is starting to move away now from Kaohsiung City. Places that it will be moving towards, however, Chiayi County, all those places there. Dongxi in particular on the coast would be a concern, an area of concern. Yunlin County, and obviously continuing further north, Changhua County towards Taichung, 150 kilometers away still at this point. But all of those counties and cities along the western coast of Taiwan may start to feel the effects of this storm during the night tonight. Let's see if we've got some not really any new questions at this point. Well, TH2408 just now. Will Danas I assume you're asking, will it not make landfall? Or is there any way that it won't make landfall? It still might not make landfall. I would say it's very unlikely now at this point. As I mentioned earlier, the last JMA cone actually had the center of the storm remaining offshore. They've updated and they now take the storm onshore. Not very far inland, however. Thank you for that, the Julian Main. Apparently MSM is a Japanese forecast model. I've never heard of it. But if they've initialized the storm as a Category 4, then that is a bit of a busted run. Having said that, probably the GFS is too, because it initialized the storm at 82 miles per hour, which is also low. Really wobbling there at Kaohsiung City, that webcam. Certainly getting maybe one or two stronger wind gusts there. But yes, for Rosnita, it is very likely that we are going to see landfall. The question is when and where. Movement is still pretty stable, actually. Trending northeastwards. And I would suppose that the most likely location for landfall right now would be very northern part of Chiayi County, just north of Dongxi. That at the moment is the most likely landfall site. So this is the first major typhoon of this year's typhoon season, after things got off to a fairly tepid start in the Western Pacific. We didn't quite expect to see our first major typhoon coming from this kind of scenario. Rather unusual. It really is unusual, because if it is anywhere near this intensity at landfall, it will be the most powerful landfall ever on the west coast of Taiwan. That's not to say necessarily that it's the strongest storm to have gone through western Taiwan. Some very powerful typhoons in the past may have kept Category 3 status after moving in from the east to the west coast. But certainly from a straight impact on the west coast, this is definitely one of, if not the strongest to do so. And it is continuing to draw in at a fairly decent pace. We expect landfall will occur in the next 3 hours, most likely. But exactly when remains unknown at this point. Still a few little areas of uncertainty. If it just dips a little bit to the east, that could bring landfall forward an hour or two. And at such a short distance to landfall, it could make a big difference. Let's go back to some of those live cameras. This is Tainan once again, looking out onto the road here. Still a few people out, or a few vehicles out. Very heavy rainfall. Never really seen any. Actually, you can see one of those little store shelter roof things flapping about over there in the distance. So they seem to be going a little bit fast for the conditions, but it certainly looks like they're getting a significant amount of wind. Not crazy amounts though, a very built up area, so probably somewhat sheltered there in Tainan, but certainly getting lots of heavy rainfall. Back to that other camera viewpoint from Kaohsiung City, which shows us a nice view of the coastline and the water's edge. Try and enhance that image a little bit more for you. So the water is well away from inundating the land areas or the roads over there and buildings. So it has hit at a decent time in terms of tide times. And obviously another indicator is that there is still plenty of power there as well. No power outages at either of the two locations that we're looking at presently. So that is some good news at the moment. Let's see if we can check in again on some of those traffic cameras that we were looking at earlier as well. Let's see what we've got. I appreciate they do appear on very small screens. You might have to stick your face right up to the screen and have a look. That was one viewpoint that wasn't looking very good. That one's gone down. That one's still active. These are areas very, very close to the center of the storm now, within 35 or 30 kilometers even. That one's in color. Look at that. Now they're really getting it there. Typhoon conditions, I would imagine, at that location. So that's the worst I've seen so far on this particular camera. Or on any of the cameras, I should say. Getting in closer towards Tainan now. Quite a lot of heavy rainfall there. I don't know if it's just camera lag or something, but it just seems like some of these vehicles are going very fast for the conditions. Again, these are similar areas to where that Tainan camera that we've been showing was and still is. And this one right along the coast. Very windy at that location, no doubt about it. And we're getting a bit of lag there. There's another camera really wobbling around. And that one's not showing anything. That one's a black screen. And this is towards Kaohsiung. Very, very wet and slippery surfaces, I would imagine. Lots of casualties from storm events can be in vehicle accidents, generally caused by these big drops of heavy rain that happen sometimes very quickly indeed. We were talking earlier on in the stream that when the core reaches the coast, you could be looking at periods of 50 millimeters per hour rainfall. That's what's currently being indicated by satellite estimates, up to 50 millimeters per hour. That is a lot of rain. And as we always say, it's not necessarily amount of rain that causes problems, it's during what time period. And 100 millimeters in 2 hours could cause flash flooding in a few places. So, gradual movement continues northeasterly at this point. Start your message with 413, all in text. TH2408 says, do you think Wayne was stronger than a Category 2? I absolutely cannot remember anymore. I did look at Wayne not that long ago, but that part of my brain just isn't plugged in right now without me having to go through all the records and have to search things up, and not practical whilst we're watching this right now. But I would suggest at the moment that this storm is stronger than Wayne, but it is showing signs of starting to lose a bit of intensity, and I think it is a decent shout for a Category 2 landfall by the time it gets there. Going back to the radar, There it is, very close to the coast. A pretty different story to satellite when you're looking at those tiny islands in southern Penghu County. They are getting the eye wall, northwestern side. But if you were looking at satellite, you might be convinced that they're actually getting the eye. They're not going to get the eye there, looking at this. The eye still hasn't crossed over any land areas yet. But it is getting closer. Just going to see if I can get a new position estimate now. So new position estimate, 25 kilometers west-northwest of the westernmost point of Taiwan, near Kigu district. It is 32 kilometers from Xiangjun district. And 50 kilometers from Dongxi, which is still the most likely location for landfall. And just looking at this radar imagery a little bit longer, yeah, no, I'm not going to change my mind on that. It still looks like it's going to be somewhere near there. It's still a big question mark. Will it wobble a bit further north? Will it wobble a bit further east, though? Because if it does that, then that brings landfall probably an hour closer. But nonetheless, we are going to finish this update live coverage at the end of this hour, because I do believe there's a little bit more time before landfall, and we are going to most likely produce a landfall update in usual video format. But for the time being, continuing to monitor this storm as it draws closer. Do we think it's still a Category 3 at this point, guys, or is it time to knock it down?
Yeah.
You do?
Just
can I see the most
find-
recent? Can I see the most recent imagery? Because I'm
Let's
having
check
trouble.
the most
looking.
recent real Earth image here. Well, the eye's completely disappeared on that, almost.
Please, could you show?
Yeah, I don't think that's worthy of being Category 3 anymore.
Maybe 115, but it's going. It's starting to fade a little, but... Okay, which satellite imagery are you wanting, Jack? I don't know which one you want us to show at the minute. But there again is the latest Zare
Sorry?
imagery. Which imagery were you looking for?
The latest imagery.
Well, there it is here. The eyes disappeared even further. Well, on our live stream. I can't show you things other than that.
Okay. Let me have a look real quick.
I don't know if that's worthy of being 3 anymore.
And another comment there,
I
it looks like it's...
I think that's still a 3, maybe.
I do.
Wait, oh no, it's because it's bald.
I think we're going to give this 115 at this point.
115.
Yeah. We won't be updating the screen numbers, but basically from us here, probably 115 at this point.
Yeah.
The Julian Main says it's currently 7 kilometers away from one of the islands. I don't think it did get that close, but I would say about 16 kilometers it probably got to, judging by the numbers I'm looking at here. Eddie thinks it will make landfall in mainland China and not Taiwan. You'll be brave for betting on that at this point. It is still possible that the storm will not make landfall in Taiwan, but that window is fast closing, and I know it looks like it's done a little jog to the west on this satellite imagery, but radar is not saying the same. Radar looks a lot more steady in that it's stayed the same direction at near enough the same speed, perhaps a slight slowdown. but still, we obviously had to go live because this storm became very impressive, and at one point it was a little bit of a fearing the worst case scenario if it was going to keep ramping up the way it was when we were preparing to go live. That could have been a really big thing, but right now it is still a big thing. It's still, if it does make landfall now, it is still the strongest landfall on the western coast of Taiwan.
Yes.
Although it is very small. Let's go back to some of those cameras. Back to Tainan, live view. I do love these ones that are close in on the ground. I don't suppose this particular camera comes with audio, probably not. But this gives you a decent idea on how things are looking at probably the closest webcam of this kind to the storm. You can see all that flapping about on that storefront in the background there. Only real indicator of the wind on here. And I think is that rain, can't tell if it's the wind or if the water's pooling up a little bit on the right hand side at the back there. But clearly they're getting very heavy rainfall in Tainan right now, and that is set to continue for most of this evening. So we'll be wrapping up shortly. Let's go through everyone with your thoughts on this. Christian, closing thoughts on this storm right now?
Well, I mean, again, seems to be weakening on approach. Still a very dangerous system. Like you said, we were giving it 115 at this point in time, even though when we started it was 120. Again, yes, still a very dangerous system. Still Category 3. Obviously, the officials have got some catching up to do. It looks like as well.
Seems that way.
Yeah, basically, those in the path of this system, please stay safe. Please be in your safe spaces now, basically. And just as long as you're okay, you'll. I don't know.
Did you lose your train of thought there, Christian?
Pretty much, yeah.
We get the sentiment, I think. Ethan,
Yeah.
Are you still there? I'm not sure if he
No,
took
he's
a
not.
moment away, or probably his cat hijacked the computer again or something. Jack, your thoughts? Final thoughts on Danas?
It is on its way out now. It's not. There's no sign of it strengthening anytime soon, and
No.
it is going to make landfall soon. And we will have a landfall update out for that. I think you said earlier.
It's looking that way, yeah.
Yeah. So it is on its way out, but that is no mean to avoid the situation. It's still a very intense typhoon.
Yep, I know people often turn their heads when they hear the word weakening, as if, oh, that's it,
Yeah.
it's over now. When no, it's
This
still
Taiwan.
means
This is slow weakening for Taiwan. This is slow.
it certainly is presently. It looks like it will weaken a little bit more before it makes landfall, but it still will be at least one of, if not the strongest landfall in western Taiwan. That looks to be on the way, assuming it actually does make landfall, which is nearly certain, but it does still have to limber over those few more miles and kilometers, about 25 kilometers from land at this point. We're going to be heading away now. We'll have more updates on the channel throughout this evening. We'll have a video update at landfall, and I imagine there'll be a few social media updates too. For now though, this was Typhoon Danas, Category 3, heading towards Taiwan, and that was our update. The storm is expected to move through Taiwan and then eventually turn left and then possibly still survive as it hits China, moves southwesterly according to the GFS model, turns around again, passes close to Taiwan again, and then dies off.
Wane again?
In the east. Wane again, possibly, yeah.
Takes off Wayne.
Over there in the East China Sea. Well, hopefully not a Wane, right? But
Yeah.
so it could be one of those wacky tracks. Wind shear will rise on the northern side of Taiwan, and that will keep the storm weak after it actually weakens this first time when it moves through the island. It is compact. The further it goes inland, the bigger the chance that it will absolutely capitulate. Those mountains, storm shredders they are. On average, they drop a storm by 2 categories. A small storm like this, maybe even more. That's it from us here at Force 13 HQ. It was good to be with you, and I'm sure we'll be back again very soon the way things are going. And follow our social media outlets, Force 13 on our usual platforms. And you can join the conversation on our Discord server, discord.gg/Force13. That's it from us. We'll see you again soon. Good night.